All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the SkyTown Pod. I'm your host, Garrett Neal, and hey, this episode and another step forward with this brand new podcast. We have video on YouTube. I like podcasts because they're an audio medium and you don't have to watch them, but it's a very popular thing to do now is have video podcast. So just making that available. Don't have an amazing setup. I'm just here in front of my Celtics poster. I do have a Sky poster on this wall right here. You just can't see it. So maybe I'll move that in the future. It's not a very big poster though, so it wouldn't look quite as impressive as my lovely Boston Celtics 2024 championship banner that I have behind me. And just with my chunky little gaming headset on here. But just a fun little thing to try. And this episode's probably going to be our shortest so far. I haven't done a ton of research for this one, so maybe not the greatest one to start with the video, but just wanted to try. And it's my birthday week, the week that I'm recording this, but I wanted to make sure I got a new episode out because the Sky have a really weird gap in their schedule. They have almost a week in between their last game and their upcoming game against the Indiana Fever on the 7th. Right, tomorrow's Friday. Yeah, on the 7th. So I wanted to get an episode out in between then to talk a little bit about the last couple games because, hey, they actually won, not one, but two, count them, two games. They've still only beaten one team, but they have beaten them twice. So huge, vast improvements for the Sky. So that's mostly what we're going to be talking about is what was different about those games. Talk a little bit about the upcoming game against the Sky and some of the other games happening next week. And of course, wrap up as always by hitting a couple stories from around the league, which this week is probably going to be highlighted. It's kind of a Sky related story, but the Sky are retiring Candace Parker's jersey. And the other big, huge story is that, oh my God, Caitlin Clark, she pulled a hamstring. Oh my God, what could be worse? I don't know. There's not really that much to talk about there, I feel like, but it's a big story around the league. So I'll feel like I have to mention a little bit. But without further ado, let's talk about the Sky because that's who we care about here. And they won 2 games in a row against the Dallas Wings. Now, the first thing, obviously, you got to talk about with that is like, oh, let's jump to the standings here. Sky tied for ninth at 2-4. Okay, it's still not very good, but I'm doing a lot better. And then, let's scroll down to 13th are the Dallas Wings at 1-7. So you got 2 wins against what's currently the worst team in the league. So maybe not the most impressive wins in the world, but given how pretty embarrassing the Sky had looked after those first 4 games, you'll take what you can get. So I pulled up some stats here. I pulled up the Sky stats on the season as a whole, and then compare that to just isolating the stats in their last 2 games. And again, it is a little wonky because these are still both against the same team, and it is a really bad team. So I mean, anytime you're looking at any 2-game sample size, it's just a super, super small sample size, so you can only take away so much. But it could just use a little bit of stats to kind of support some things that I've been noticing, or that I noticed in those 2 different games. Now, first thing is kind of the most basic one is just shooting. And obviously, the Sky had shot a very atrocious percentage basically across the board in those first 4 games. They were at around 29% or 28% from 3-point range. They were at below 60% from the free throw line, and I forget where they were overall, but against in those two games against the Wings, they still averaged about 26 3-pointers in those games, which is right around in line with their season average, which is about 25, 24 and a half right now. So right around there, but they shot a very healthy 35% on those 26 attempts per game, which again, just two games, but huge jump from 28%. If you're shooting 28%, then shooting that amount of threes, if you like math it out, is just, it's not really an efficient shot. And you want to be hitting generally around 35% is a really good mark. If you can start to hit above 35%, then you're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league. The highest three-point percentage from a team on the season right now is the New York Liberty, who are still undefeated at 7-0, and they're shooting a little over 38%. And then just below them is the Lynx, who are 8-0, who are shooting around 37%. So 35 in those last two games is right up there with some of the top teams in the league. And you can see, looking at the 3-point percentage, that a lot of the teams that are doing really well right now they're taking a lot of threes, and they're shooting very well on those threes. New York is shooting 32 threes a game, which I'm pretty sure it's second in the league, actually, behind the Valkyries, but the Valkyries are shooting 27%. So they're really chucking them up there, but they're not necessarily going in. Then the Lynx, they're shooting around 25, 24 per game, which again is in that kind of range that the Sky are at. The Aces are shooting about 28 per game, shooting around 36%. So a lot of those top teams, this is kind of that strategy that they're taking as well, shooting 26, 27, 28 threes a game or more if you're the Liberty. But the Liberty have a lot of very, very strong shooters on their team. Not everyone has the personnel to do what they do. And you want to be hitting, right, 34, 35, 36%. So on the season, the Sky are still only at around 30%, which is 11th in the league. And I don't expect them to necessarily shoot 35% going forward, but I think that it is not only that they're playing better and that they're playing against a bad team, but I think players are getting a little more confident and they're working to get better shots. I'm not really sure how I would find this information, but if I would love to be able to see what percentage of these shots are catch and shoot versus off the dribble, because generally catch and shoot threes are a much higher percentage shot and a much better shot. And I feel like they have been able to work to get a lot more of those open catch and shoot threes in those two games against the Dallas Wings. How did they do that? Well, one thing that I really noticed in these games was being aggressive and being a threat without being a three-point shooter from Angel and Camilla. Camilla, in the first game against the Dallas Wings, had one of her best games of the season so far. I'm going to see if I can pull up the stats for that really quick. But she was clearly a focus. You could see that, I think, on some level, like it's nice to see that it seems like that the coaching staff was seeing some of the things that as fans we were seeing in terms of Camilla not being as aggressive as it feels like she could be, not playing as physical as it feels like she could be. And in that first game, she was really a focus of the offense. Man, the stats page is confusing. Okay, here we go. There she is. So this is, wow, okay. Useless. where's her game log? I pulled up her stats page on the WNBA website, and it's just like, here's her season stats. I'm like, where's the game by game? Okay. All right, we're just going to have to Google Sky versus Wings box score. Anyway, this is why doing video can be more challenging, because then I have to go back and edit some of this stuff out. So in the first game, Camilla had 23 points, 9 of 13 shooting, 8 rebounds, and overall very efficient. 5 of 6 from the free throw line over the last 2 games. Huge for the Sky. Free throw percentage, like 80%. 80%. So it's like 79.6, but 80%. Wow, they're probably not going to shoot 80% for the whole year. But again, the fact they were shooting below 60% in those first 4 games is horrible. So just seeing some of those things kind of even out a little bit, seeing, everyone's relaxed a little bit more. Again, having a little bit more confidence, believing in each other, believing in the team, believing in the system. And these are the types of things that you see go up. So she was a big focus, which was really, really nice to see. And one of the things that is important, which is what I was about to go into before I got distracted, is when you are not a 3-point shooter and you just stand outside the 3-point line and you just kind of move, shuffle around a little bit, like, oh, I'll go over here and go over here. The defense doesn't have to respect you at all, and you're not making them make any choices, and they can just kind of ignore you. And there's a really interesting video, I believe it was from the channel Thinking Basketball last year or a couple years ago, about Zion Williamson and how he is able to create a lot of the advantages that he does, even though he's not a plus shooter. And one of the things that was talked about in that video that I noticed, especially Angel doing a lot of and Camilla doing a little bit of as well, is catching the ball on the run. We've seen Angel really focus in the beginning of the season of using her dribble a little bit more and attacking slower bigs off the dribble, which mixed success. She's still definitely growing her skill in terms of handling the basketball a little bit, but it's a really interesting thing to add to her game. And one of the advantages of having that skill is that when you're at the 3-point line, maybe they don't have to close out on you in terms of her shot, but if you see someone swinging the ball around, the ball's coming to you, and you catch the ball on the move, attacking the basket, if the defense is just standing there a couple feet back, well, you're just going to be able to blow past them because they're not going to be ready necessarily for that attack. And it again makes the defense have to respect you even out at the 3-point line, not as a shooter, because if you make those quick decisions and you're making those quick attacks, you're catching the ball with momentum already. If the defense isn't prepared for that, then it's really easy to blow past them basically and make either someone else rotate, or you can get a nice shot at the rim. And Angel was doing a really great job of catching the ball on the move, being able to get past that first line of defense. And then, which was huge, is there was a lot of times where I saw Angel making that extra pass, because and this is one of the reasons why I think she's such an incredible prospect and has such a high skill ceiling, because this is something that I think she was having issues with just a few games ago, where she just gets the ball down, and once she's inside like 2 or 3 feet, it felt like she would get in this mentality of like, I'm close to the hoop, I need to score here, I should be able to score here. And the reality is, it's like, yeah, maybe you can, but a lot of times there's going to be a better shot. It's the classic basketball cliche of passing up a good shot for a great shot. But a lot of times cliches are cliches because there's that little nugget of truth in there, and that's what it is. Just because you're close to the basket and you have, quote, a layup, doesn't mean it's a good shot. If you've got 2 or 3 people on you, then that's not a great shot, especially for Angel, who is strong and as powerful as she is. She's still short for her position. And so we've seen, especially in those first 4 games, going against taller defenders, they're able to block her shot quite a lot. So she was doing a great job of creating that advantage and then using that advantage to get a great shot for someone else. And that's how we get those open 3-point shooters. That's how we get Camilla open under the rim, because she's making herself available when her defender comes over to help on Angel. And then Angel sees that, makes the extra pass, and you get those easy looks for your team. So that was something I was really, really excited to see, because, hey, eventually maybe Angel might be able to hit down some mid-range or even some threes. I'd love to see Camilla at least be able to hit some mid-rangers here or there. But you can still be effective and a threat on offense without having to clog up the lane all the time and without having to be a shooter necessarily. So being aggressive on the catch, making those quick decisions and attacking the defense, getting the ball on the move, forcing the defense to respect your abilities as a driver and as a threat around the rim, so that they either have to go out and guard you at the 3-point line so that you're not able to catch the ball on the move like that, which is going to open up the lane a little bit and just create more driving lanes for your guards like Courtney or Ariel or Kia or whoever it might be at that time. Or if they're still sagging back on you, then you're hopefully going to be able to continue to catch the ball on the move, make the defense have to make those choices in that moment, and that's going to create its own advantages or your own open shots. So that's something I hope we continue to see. And we can take a look at assists per game from these last 2 games. The Sky, 24 assists per game in those last 2 games, which is good enough for 3rd in the league. You take a look at their season stats. The season stats, they're right around 20 per game. So we're seeing a few more assists. Some of that is just because they were making more shots. So I don't know how much you can really gain from that. But I think in general, I would, if I had a little bit more time, I would love to dig into more in terms of like assist percentage and seeing like how many baskets are coming off of assists and the assist to turnover ratio and that sort of stuff. Which I know I can find in terms of like the catch and shoot stuff and that sort of thing. I don't know if I can find that, but just watching the game, it feels like the Sky have been creating a lot more easy looks for themselves, which again is coming against a pretty crappy defense and a team that's a little bit down on their luck right now, because they were already struggling, the Wings were, to start the season, and Paige Beckers has been out for a few games with an injury now as well, including that second game against the Sky. So again, small sample size against one of the worst teams in the league, but you still liked seeing this improvement from the Sky, and I feel like you've seen game to game lots of little improvements here and there with this team, and you hope to continue seeing that as this season goes on. And even wins against the bad teams they're worth just as much as wins against the good teams when it comes to the win-loss record and that sort of thing at the end of the day. Even though it might not feel as good, might not feel as nice, still weighted the same. It's still weighted the same. And it proves that, like, the Sky, as bad as they were those first 4 games, they're like, hey, we're putting our foot down and we're saying we're not the worst team in the league right now. We're not the worst team in the league, which is good, because you look at that roster and that's not where they should be. That's not where they should be. This is a team that I definitely think has the talent and skill to make the playoffs. And if they're able to play around the level that they have in the last 2 games, then I think they could definitely find themselves in that 6th or 7th seed come the end of the season. Another little storyline, Haley Van Lith, she was able to come back. She was out for a little bit with a low-grade ankle sprain. Seems like she's still working her way back to 100%, but again, I think she's been pretty decent in the few times that she's been able to go out there in those few minutes, and is just she's really just one other person on this team who is able to really handle the ball and create her own offense at times. Courtney Vandersloot has done an incredible job of being much more aggressive on offense. I think that's probably been a bit of a mind shift set for her, coming from a couple of years in New York where you're playing with Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquel Jones, Brianna Stewart, these incredible players, some of the best players to ever lace it up, who can score from all over the floor. At that point, you're doing a lot of distributing. Like, if you're a player like Courtney Vandersloot, who's a great player, one of the best players in the Chicago Sky history, she's still going to be focusing on her passing at that time. But on this team, she has to create her own offense a little bit more and be ready to score. And I think in these last two games, you definitely saw her be a little bit more aggressive, not only taking threes, but getting into the paint and being like, oh, I'm not looking to like dish it off here. I'm looking to score. And if the pass opens up, the pass opens up. So that's been really cool to see. And frankly, it feels like she's got a lot more juice in those legs than honestly I was expecting coming into this season. This is another thing. Again, I'm right about to leave on vacation, and in a normal episode, I would love to be able to break down some of these specifics a little bit more. But the great thing is that we're just in the beginning of the season, and as the Sky continue to play more games and hopefully continue to win more games, then I'll have a little bit more time to dig into some of those stats here and there. But let's just bring that up to say that Courtney's been doing a great job, but I'm also really excited as Haley gets a little more healthy for her to be able to take some of that minutes load off of Courtney Vandersloot. The WNBA season is not quite as much of a grind as the NBA season is. Obviously, it's almost half as long in terms of total games. The games themselves are also shorter than NBA games, but she's still 36 years old, and you don't want to be having to play her, 30, 35, 36, 37 minutes a game all the time. So as Haley gets more healthy, hopefully she gets more minutes. They've been using Rachel Banham as kind of the backup point guard a lot of times right now, which she can do, but her strength is her three-point shooting. So I think what you really want for her is to be off ball, and you want her to be the person that you're passing it to when you create those advantages by driving. You're going inside out, right? Drive and kick. She's the person you want to be kicking to, not necessarily the person you want to be doing the driving, because that shooting, she's probably, in my opinion, she's the best shooter on the team. Maybe not necessarily in terms of percentages, it doesn't show out that way, but she's a very confident shooter, and every time she shoots it, I'm like, this has got a good chance of going in. She just has that. She's got that shooter mentality. I feel I started this podcast. I'm like, oh, we're going to do stats. We're going to get into analytics, all that. And this one, I'm using all the cliches in this one. But again, just wanted to get this out before that game against the Fever coming up on Saturday. So it is what it is. Hopefully it's still an enjoyable episode. But with that game against the Fever coming up, we can kind of preview that one. So that one is a home game for the Sky, but not at their usual arena of Wintrust Arena. It's going to be way out in the United Center, which, of course, is where the Chicago Bulls usually play. But it's probably not going to be the event that the people who set that up were hoping for, because Caitlin Clark is out for a few weeks with what I believe is a hamstring strain, or it's a hamstring, a quad. Okay, so it's a very not serious injury, but just because of her status as a player in the league, there is a lot of news over that, and you can understand when a team like the Sky are literally moving to a venue that's almost twice as large just to host this game, and now They are now the one of the more popular players is going to be out with injury, which is going to make it a lot harder to sell tickets and that sort of stuff. So that is a little unfortunate, but that is kind of the way things can go when you're putting all your eggs into one player's basket. But the hope is that Caitlin Clark can get a lot of people interested in the league, and then as they start to watch more games, that they get interested in other players and other teams as well. So hopefully that starts to happen more. It's always going to happen anytime any popular player is out. People aren't going to watch as much. You see that's been a huge storyline in the NBA for several seasons now, with just a lot of star players missing time in the regular season, even missing time in the playoffs with tons of injuries, and it just making the NBA games much less watchable, especially in the regular season where you just get a lot of people resting and people just taking breaks in the season sometimes, basically. And so when that happens, people watch less. So it's not like a unique phenomena to Caitlin Clark. Same thing would happen if any popular, like if Angel Reese got hurt, Sky viewership would go down exponentially, I'm sure, because she's the most popular player on the team. But it just so happens that because Caitlin Clark has that stature, this is getting a little bit more coverage. And frankly, the W is still in that growth stage right now where they, on the national scale, don't necessarily have the league-wide publicity that we'd hope to see going forward. But so it's not unique that people are going to watch less because Caitlin Clark is out. But I hope that there's at least some people who started watching because of Caitlin Clark, but are going to continue watching even when she's out because they just started to get interested in the league now. And that's kind of what I want to focus on. And I think we should focus on is the overall growth and not just the like, oh my God, Caitlin Clark's missing 2 weeks because of a minor injury, that the league's going to like collapse and close on itself. Like, come on, guys, let's relax. But it should still be an interesting game. The fact that Caitlin Clark is out makes it a very, very winnable game for the Sky. They have a week off in between games, which is crazy. I don't know how that happened. I'm going to have to look that one up for the next episode. Like, you just don't see that. Even in the WNBA, which is a 44 game season this year, like a week off in between games? What? But that's really awesome for the Sky, who obviously had a lot of growing pains early, but then they get a couple nice wins. They get to feel good, and they get to take that feeling into practice over this week. Hopefully gel even more, take those positive lessons that they've gained from those first six games and continue to work on those. And hopefully we'll be really ready to go against the Fever, who have been struggling without Caitlin Clark for the most part. They did most recently beat the Washington Mystics 85-76, but that was coming on the heels of losing to the Connecticut Sun, and also losing to the Mystics in the first game without Caitlin Clark. So they're sitting at 3. Are they 3-3 right now? 3-4 right now. So I believe they're 1-2 without Caitlin Clark. So they've had a very up and down start to the season, and without Caitlin Clark, I think that this is a very, very winnable game for the Chicago Sky. And coming off of that week break, they should be set up and ready to go. And then after that, the Sky will have a match up against the Liberty on that Tuesday, the 10th, which obviously is going to be a very tough game. New York still has not lost yet. you hope that the Sky can at least make it a little closer than they did in that first game, but that will be pretty challenging. And then you have a game against the Atlanta Dream, then Connecticut, and then that following week they'll start off with a game against the Mystics, which actually I think I'm going to be at that game, which will be very exciting. Definitely a very, very winnable game for the Sky. The game against Atlanta, Atlanta has been pretty good so far this year. They're 5-2. The Brittany Griner and Ryan Howard combo has been doing very well, so that is going to be tough. But the Connecticut Sun, very, very winnable game. They are 1-6 with that one win coming against the Caitlin Clarkless Indiana Fever. And other thing to mention, talk a lot about draft picks on this podcast. And next year, the Sky did not have their own pick because they traded it to the Lynx for the 10th overall pick in the 2025 draft. They had already given up the swap rights, and so they traded it outright just to get that other pick, which is like, it's fine. It's fine. It could be worse. But they do have the rights to the Connecticut Suns pick. I believe it's technically the rights to the worst pick between the Mercury and the Sun, but that's probably going to be the Sun. The Mercury are 5-3, the Sun are 1-6, so it's probably going to be the Sun. And frankly, the way the Sun has started, this has the chance to be a very good pick, which could really bail the Sky front office out for trading the 3rd overall pick last year. I believe I mentioned this in the last podcast, but you could have had both. You absolutely could have had both, which would have been potentially one of the best young cores the WNBA has ever seen. That being said, you still have a chance to put together a really strong one. So hopefully this guy can take care of business and give the Connecticut Sun one more loss, and you get that bonus of having that draft pick move up just a little bit more. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there. Been rambling a little bit on this one, as I have mentioned several times. Not the most organized, not the most deep dives in all the stats like I want to, but since there was this huge break between the Wings games and this game against the Fever, and we have a lot of positive vibes because of those 2 wins, wanted to get at least something out and just stay in the rhythm of recording these. So hopefully it was still enjoyable for you folks, but the next one will be a little bit more in line with what we've had before with the stats research and all that good stuff. So let's enjoy those wins while we can. Hopefully we've got one more coming up this weekend, and hopefully I will be back sometime next week with another episode talking about some more wins. Let's go, Sky.